Yo, what's up, nerds? And it's me, MTG Man. So I decided to look through all of Mystery Booster 2. I've taken the cheapest printing of each card in these sets, and I have figured out statistically what the average cost of each kind of card is. Like, what's the average cost of a common, uncommon, rare, mythic, right? So if you were to get the full set, all 28 mythics in the set, it would run you about $226. Now, some of these mythics, let me tell you, we've got like $20 cards, $15 cards. Most of them are above $5, but we also have a couple stinkers like Titania and Sphinx of the Steel Wind. So the value is a little bit funky. So if we do the math, it comes out to about $8 per mythic, which is actually not terrible value, especially when we look at like the higher priced mythics. This right here is the stat sheet. So the average mythic is about $8.07. The average rare is about $7.43. The average common is $5.97. And the uncommon is $5.97. Common is $4.46. However, there's also 121 playtest cards that could be in the common slot. So with playtest, it's about $1.34, since we have no clue what the playtest cards are going to cost. If that's what you were here for, just the spread down of what everything is worth, click off now. So the mythic wise, like, there's some good value here, but I don't even think mythics are really what you're going to be shooting for. The rares in this set, some of these cards are insane, right? We have, Norwood Priestess. We have, this doesn't look like a big deal, but Nalathni Dragon has only ever been printed once for Dragon Con, apparently. Scale Lord Reckoner is like a $20 card. Thassa's Oracle. There's a good amount of value printed into the rare slot as well. However, and this is a big however, some of these cards I think are only at their current price because they haven't been reprinted before. Like Seed Time, I don't think is really a $16 card. I think when it gets reprinted here, it might drop down to like 8. Okay? I think that's going to be the deal with a good number of cards. Like Mana Bond, I think it's a good card, but I think Mana Bond has never been reprinted, right? I think it's probably going to drop down to like $15. Miri's Guile, I think is going to be about 20 instead of 30. We've seen it as a Judge promo, but that really never affects price. Underworld Breach, I think might drop a little bit, but I think a lot of the rares are going to hold their value besides, like, this has only been printed in Odyssey. I think it'll be $20 top. Like, it's literally just a worse City of Brass. We also have, starting in the rare slot downwards, we have cards like Mardu Outrider and Volucan Dragon, where these were originally digital cards that are now going to be printed into physical. So we have no idea what these are going to end up costing, but if I predict it right, I think they're both going to be under 50 cents. And we also have this interesting issue where I don't know if they announced if these are going to be legal yet or not. Like, if we look at the Secret Lair Angels deck, we can go to, let's see if I can find it. If I remember, is it Shattered Angel? No. It's, okay, Ardent Angel, right, was originally printed for the Sega Dreamcast, or not printed, it was originally just digital, which is the same case for this here dragon. So it's really hard to tell if that card's legal. Will this also be legal? I imagine most of the digital cards are going to be legal, but it's just a little bit tricky. Going over to the uncommon reprints, again, there's cards like Eater of Dead, where I think it's only been printed in the dark, right? So I think it's definitely going to be like $1 tops. But there are some really strong reprints here, like Dryad Arbor, Elvish Spirit Guide, Memnite, Pitiless Plunder, Aether Vial, Basalt Monolith, Grinding Station, Krark Clan Ironworks, Lightning Greaves. The Baubles are getting reprinted, Sensei's Divining Top, Thornbite Staff, Umbral Mantle, Brain Freeze, Chain of Vapor, Demonic Consultation, Mental Misstep. Like, there's a lot of really strong reprints. But then again, we also have cards like Reset, where it's a Legends card, right? It's $30 because it was reprinted. It's only been printed once, right? What are the chances Reset doesn't become like $1? All right. Control of the Court, draw 4, and then discard 3 at random. It's not a bad ability, but I don't see this sticking at $40 after a reprint. Counterbalance is a good reprint. Cabal Coffers is a solid reprint. Wasteland. And then we go back again to these arena cards where I think they're going to be legal, but like Oracle of the Alpha conjures the power 9 into your library, then shuffle. Sure, I guess you technically could do this with token. It's kind of similar to Garth. Oh, I need to reset. Garth One Eye, where he can create like Black Lotuses and disenchants, and he puts them in your hand. I guess that's sort of similar to conjuring, but unless they're making like power 9 tokens that are going into these packs, I don't exactly know how this is going to work. If there's just going to be fill-in-the-blank tokens, it's just going to be interesting. We also have Goblin Gang Leader. This could just be a vanilla card. It's a 4-mana 2/2 that creates 2 1/1s. That's fine. Rusko, again, it's a little bit complicated with the conjuring thing, but if it's just a token, I think it's fine. Sigardian Avengel creates a token of itself into your hand, I guess. I'm not entirely sure. Tenacious Pup. So boons aren't exactly I don't know. It doesn't even use the word. It does use the word boon here. So you get a boon where the next creature has a +1/+1 counter, trample, or vigilance counter. I guess really that is it going to be like almost like an emblem, and then you just sacrifice it once you play the creature. I'm not sure. Torolf's Disciple, I really like. I'm really hoping this is legal because the idea of getting to put 4 lightning bolts into my library, is super fun to me. Sanguine Brushstroke creates a Blood Artist. I think that's kind of cool. And then Forsaken Crossroads is just a weird land. I mean, sure, there's ways to make these work in a standard format in Commander, whatever. But I'm a little bit confused of how they're going to do it in Draft. Like, how are they going to get you 4 lightning bolts? Do you have to make the lightning bolts to put in your deck? Like, how is that working? And then if we look at commons, here's again, like Force Bear, only printed once. That's why it's $30. Hunting Cheetah, only printed once. That's why it's $80. All right, these are definitely going to go down, but there's also like Rat Colony's a pretty solid reprint. Lotus Petal's good. And you'll notice along with Lotus Petal, we also got Cabal Ritual, Dark Ritual, Calling the Weak. So Pauper Cycle Storm, I think, is going to become a little bit cheaper. Dragon's Approach, Gitaxian Probe, Merchant Scroll, Ponder, Preordain, Rite of Flame. Really good reprints overall, especially for the common slot. However, I don't know how exactly commons are going to be, like, how many you're actually going to get that are commons and not playtest cards. Because if you look at it, there's 121 playtest cards that are also in the common slot. And while yes, I think it's good that they are in the common slot, because then, you don't open it and it's like your rare's a playtest card, and now what are you going to do with it after draft? Like, I think that kind of sucks. I think it's a good slot to put them in the common slot, right? But at the same time, that also means you're getting less commons. So I'm just really interested to see on how that's going to balance out. I also have to mention the reprinting of Whiteout is really fucking funny to me. I really like this Whiteout reprint where it just that's so funny. But overall, there's a solid amount of reprint value in this set. And I think the draft environment is going to be really interesting too. Like, a lot of the mythic cards are what I think mythics should be. Well, not what I think mythic. In a draft environment, what I think mythics should be, right? I think in a draft environment, mythics are bombs. A mythic isn't like a mythic isn't a mana vault that's just going to like add mana. A mythic is take an extra turn, cheat something cool into play, a big fucking sphinx. Like, I think these mythics are going to be really cool for a draft environment, as well as just being really good reprints. One thing I have to add that I don't like is that we're getting 2 Teferis in one set. I hate Teferi, because Teferi just ruins all fun. But, like, overall, I think it's a really solid set with some really solid reprints. Sure, like, King's Assassin is not going to be $10 after it's reprinted. I think even Norwood Priestess, probably going to be, like, 10 after reprint. 10 tops. Alright? But these are cards that desperately need reprints so that people can actually play them. So I think this is a step in the right direction. It's a little bit difficult to be saying that, though, because this is a $250 box. Sure, it comes with secret layers, but that's the only way you're getting these reprints, right? I think if you're a new player, buy one of these boxes, maybe. If you're going to buy any box, buy one of these, because this is going to be what you need to bump up your commander deck. You buy a precon, and you buy one of these boxes, and you probably have a pretty solid deck, honestly. Like, the amount of staples that are in this set, I think, is really good. I think, reprinting cards that have no reason to be as expensive as they are is really good. I think the draft environment is going to be really interesting, though, because I think, while yes, the reprints are good, some of the synergy seems to be lacking. And the fact that Demonic Consultation and Thassa's Oracle are in the same set, horrifying. Horrifying. Who allowed this to happen? This should be a crime. Or, like, as an example here, in the common slot, we have Basilisk Gate, right? It gives another creature +X, where X is the number of gates you control. Yeah, there's no other gates in this set, as far as I can tell. So what you're actually supposed to do with that in a draft, I'm not entirely sure. Sarkhan Fireblood, sure, creating mana to cast dragons is cool, but there's, like, what? Like, 1 dragon? Let's check rares. Let's not be too hasty, let's check rares. 2. 3. Check on commons. There's 3 dragons in the set. So if you pull that as your mythic, it's not usually worth taking unless you're reselling it. Sarah the Benevolent, at least, she affects all flyers. I can kind of understand getting behind that. Or we have cards like Doomsday, where I don't think Doomsday really matters as much in a environment like this, right? In a draft environment, I don't think you're going to be able to set up a combo kill. I mean, maybe you can, but, like, it's not guaranteed. I do think it's definitely a better reprint set than a draft set, but to be fair, I have not seen the draft environment, right? For all I know, this could be really fun, and I think with the playtest cards, I think the playtest cards will be really fun. However, I'm just not sure how cohesive it all is, and that could just be me. Alright, I could be missing the vision here, but there's something that doesn't feel cohesive. Like, I don't know. I don't know. It could just be a me thing, honestly. Could just be a me thing. But overall, I think the reprints are really good, and might as well, while I'm here, I'm just gonna go over quickly the playtest cards, because there's like 102 of them or whatever. 121, 102, whatever. So at the beginning of your upkeep, and when she enters the battlefield, you create a 1/1 white legendary dog and name it. Gets +1/+1 for each legendary creature you control. I think this is really fun, but I'm just not... you know what? No, I think this is really fun. I think A Girl and Her Dogs is a... I'm rereading this, alright? I think this may be the perfect playtest card. It balances... Okay, sure, you're creating tokens. That's normal gameplay. You're getting +1/+1. That's normal gameplay. You're also creating legendary dogs, and you have to name them. That's good playtest. I think this is good playtest writing, along with being fairly balanced. Abbot of the Sacred Meeple. This creature can occupy a space 2 spaces higher on the monk track than its power. Once on each of your odd number production phases, you can spend 2 additional sheep when constructing a building. If you do, you may activate the lesser production ability of any building of prestige 5 or lower you control, except Apiary Cobbler, but not Shoemaker or Wainwright. So I think the joke is that this is just a bear. I think that's funny, but it's just too much to read. I don't really care for that kind of thing. Alberic's the Trade Planet. So when it enters, exile the top 5 cards of your library as its resources. And at the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, choose 1. Discard a card, put 2 of its resources into its owner's hand, or exile the top card of your library as a resource. So it's like a pool outside the game that you can discard a card to get cards out of that pool, or you can choose not to then put more cards in that pool. So I think it's just kind of cool value over time. I feel like something like this would actually be a pretty cool, commander card, if it was legal. All-Star Kicker. So you and up to 1 other player can spend mana to pay the kicker cost. When it enters, your team can pass the ball. Then if All-Star Kicker was kicked, creatures your team controls get +1/+1 and haste until end of turn. To pass the ball is to give one of the players on your team a permanent or card in your hand to another. Okay. So it only really works in Two-Headed Giant. Annex, Centimede, Kianos, and Tiro. So it's a 5 mana 3/8 Heroic Vigilance, or First Strike Vigilance. When you cast a spell that targets it, draw a card. Each player may put a land card from their hand onto the battlefield, then each opponent who didn't draws a card. This is one of those things I don't like, because I feel like this could just be a fun commander card. This could just be legal. I don't like... we go back to A Girl and Her Dogs, right? Where I think this is one of the perfect cards. This couldn't be commander legal. This couldn't be standard legal, because the whole naming thing, right? It's got that element of ridiculousness. This could just be a legitimate card, and there'd be nothing wrong with it. And that's where I have a problem. Arcanum things. So it gives the creature flying, and then it has equipment swap, where you can exchange the equipment with an equipment card in your hand. So, interesting. That's just, I did a kitchen table showdown on this the other day. I think it went here. That's just, Arcanum Wings, which has aura swap, where you can exchange this aura with an aura in your hand, except for equipment. Being able to switch this out with, a hammer, or something like that would be really cool, but I haven't really noticed any, Sword of the Meek. There's no there's no hammer. I haven't really, noticed enough equipment in this set for that to, actually be useful. So, here's the thing again, if this card was legal elsewhere, I would get it, because this is a good standard card, commander card, whatever. Equipment swap could be interesting. but it's in a limited environment with no equipment. So, what's the purpose? Avison's collar, the symbol of her church. So, equipped creature can attack, block, or transform, and its activated abilities can't be activated. And then it's got basically equipped to an opponent's creature. It's just like a bad pacify, I guess. Blurry Visionary. So it enters, look at the top 2 cards of your library, put them back to back in the same sleeve with either card in front, and they become a modal doodle face card for the rest of the game. Then put that card into your hand. That's cool, okay? So it's not a draw 2, it's a... It technically puts 1 card in hand, but you can play it... Oh, that's really fun. Alright, this is another well-designed card, because yes, it's fun to make, like, oh, it's a lightning bolt on one side, and it's a something else on the other side, right? That's fun, but it's also practical, because, like, it like actually works in a regular game. If this was a regular card, you could just play this. Bullshack Dragon. Holy shit, that's hard as fuck. So it's got double strike, and while attacking, this creature gets power for each red card in your grave. It gets +1 power? Okay, it gets +1 power for each red card in your graveyard. I'm assuming this is like a Digimon reference or something. That's my guess. So, double strike, 6/6. It gets +1 for each red card in your graveyard. I think that's pretty solid. I mean, if you can give it trample somehow, it's even better. And if you can give it flying, it basically could take out your opponent in 1 attack. I like it a lot, but I'm just not sure how consistent it would be. Bolt Fire is a shock with flash forward, where you can cast it for its flash forward cost, then put it on the bottom of your library. I don't think that's good. Oh, so you can cast it from exile for its flash forward cost, then put it on the bottom of your... No, it's still not good, because you have to find a way to exile it. So, yeah, I don't think that's, consistent. Anywho, so it's 2, a red, and a land drop. You can give up 1 potential land drop this turn to pay for D. So I guess if you had, like, exploration or something, you could just give up 1 of your additional land drops, which is kind of funny. But when it attacks, you can pay a land drop, so you skip it, and then you create a 3/3 boulder that's tapped and attacking, and sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. I mean, overall, you could play this turn 4, and it's a 4/4, and you could just create boulders to attack with whenever you don't have a good land to play or whatever. Like, it's okay. It's not poorly designed. I just think it's, like, meh. Bridget, who's seen some stuff. So she has Vigilance, Nimble, meaning she can't be blocked by creatures with power 3 or greater. Then Kithkin have Thought Weft, which means it has all printed keyword abilities of all creatures you control with Thought Weft. I like this. If I remember correctly, this is a thing in the, like, Lorwyn story, where I think Kithkin, like, share memories or something. I don't fully understand it. But it'll give all of your other Kithkin Vigilance and Nimble. The only problem I really see again is I don't think there's any... If we exit real quick. Because I like flavorful lore abilities, right? So we're gonna go Mystery Booster 3, or 2. We're gonna look up Kithkin. Okay, there's 2 Kithkins, including herself. The other thing is technically, not Back to Basics, where is it? Cunning Wish, Equilibrium, not Future Sight. It's a blue card. That's a card that's blue. It's blue, I think. Is it blue? Oh, there we go. So choose a creature type other than wall, and target creature becomes that type until end of turn. You could make other creatures Kithkin with unnatural selection, but I feel like you're putting in too much work for not enough payoff there. But, that's to be seen. Built Bear. So it's a 1 green 2/2, so it's a bear. During deck building, circle any number of the following. You can spend 1 point for free, and for every 2 points spent beyond that, increase this card's mana value by 1. So for 1 point each, you can give it Flash, Death Touch, Reach, Vigilance, or Ward 2. For 2 points, you can give it Tap, add 1 mana of any color. But at that point, then it's a 3 mana 2/2. For 4 points, when this creature enters, draw a card. And for 3 points, +1/+1 or +0/+2. That's definitely interesting. It's modular. I do feel like, honestly, the best choice might just be giving it Death Touch. Because I don't think, if you give it Death Touch, power and toughness don't matter that much. And sure, drawing a card when it enters is nice, but then it's a 4 mana 2/2, and it's just not worth it. But I think that's definitely cool. It's more dynamic drafting, I guess, is how I would put it. You have to think about it when you're drafting it. Thinking about your curve and all that. Call from the grave, you put a random creature from a random graveyard into play under your control. Call from the grave deals damage, or it deals to you an amount of damage equal to that creature's casting cost. From a random graveyard. So there's 2 ways I would look at that. It's either, 3 ways you could look at that. If you're in Commander or 2-headed Giant, I think you would have 4 graveyards that would be chosen from randomly. If you're in a draft 1v1, it's just from one of the 2 graveyards. But then there's also some part of me that is seeing this like an unset card, and it's acknowledging all the other players on the table. I'm not sure if that's how it's meant to be played, though, because all I'm seeing is a random graveyard. Does that have to be in your game? I think I just look at too many uncards, so I think I'm reading it into it like that. But it's a pretty decent reanimation spell. It's hard to tell. Can't quite recall. So it's Ancestral Recall, but this card can't be in your starting deck. Yes, you read that right. You need to figure out a way to get it into the game without it being in your deck. Again, there's 2 ways I can look at this, right? We've seen in the reprints, there's a handful of wishes and cards to get cards from your sideboard into your library or your hand or whatever else. The other way I can see this is as an uncard, and it's like Cheaty Face, where you have to cheat it into your library. Because technically, a way to get it into your deck without it being in your starting deck is cheating it into your library. Oh yeah, I searched my library with Evolving Wilds, and I'm going to shuffle, and you slip it in. That's what I'm thinking, but I don't think that's how it's supposed to be played. I like it either way. And that's strange coming from me, because usually I don't like the gimmicky, you have to play a wish to get it, or there's only 2 Kithkin in the set or whatever. I don't like cards that rely on other cards, but I think this could be fun. Catch of the Day enters the battlefield. Choose one of each of the following. So, keyword, it either has Vigilance, Ward 3, or Island Walk. When it attacks, you either scry 2, go to creature, which doesn't really matter in limited, or it's a 6/2, 4/4, or 2/6. I think no matter how you make this creature, I think it's underwhelming, but I think it's definitely cool. Again, this is the whole mindfulness thing, where you actually have to think about your cards, and think about do I need a big body to block? Am I going to make it a 2/6? Do I need, card advantage? Am I going to make it scry 2? Am I giving it vigilance, scry 2, and a 2/6 so that every turn it can swing in without untapping and be able to block the next turn, while also giving me, card advantage by going and scrying through my deck? It's just, I like the idea of having to choose when you're playing a card, but I don't think it's very strong. Next up is Champion of the Harish. So, as it enters, if any of its creature types isn't on your buddy list, write one of them on your buddy list. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on it if one of that creature's creature types is on your buddy list. Otherwise, write one of its creature types on your buddy list. So, it enters, and then Rabbit and Soldier enter on your buddy list, right? And then if you play a human's now on your buddy list. So next time you play a human, you'll put a +1/+1 counter on it. I like this. This is cool. This is a interesting ability. It's metagame breaking, but not like metagame breaking. It breaks the fourth wall in a sense, because you have to take a list, but at the same time, that's not even the fourth wall. It's just breaking normal game rules without also, like, being too over the top. Next up is Chedsuk, Mighty Guitarist. Oh my god, I've been thinking about this for fucking forever, right? I wanted a Commander Precon that was based around banding, and it's about a band. And this is he looks like a skeleton, but he's a human bard, and he has banding. I don't like that they don't tell you what banding does, but creature spells you cast with banding cost 2 less, and whenever 2 or more creatures you control attack in a band, each creature in that band gets +1/+1 for each creature in that band. You can't fucking see me, but I'm literally fucking crying. I love this. I hate that this is the fucking playtest card, though, because that's bullshit, because there's no other cards with banding in this fucking set. So it's literally, it's a 3-mana 2/2 that, sure, you can ban with other cards, but that's so stupid. I'm gonna be playing this as a custom commander, because I think that's so fucking cool. Why the fuck am I crying? Anywho, it's a bad draft card. It's a great card altogether. I might get it framed. Chia, friend to too many. So familiar spells you cast have flash. Familiars are bats, birds, cats, dragons, fairies, foxes, frogs, imps, lizards, and spiders. As long with any creature with familiar in its name. And you can tap to add green, and each opponent loses X life, where X is the number of familiars you control. Here's the thing. This could just be a legal card. Like, if we can do outlaws now, where outlaw is several creature types put together, we could do familiars. I think this could just be a legal card, and I think it would be pretty cool. And that's my 2 cents. I think definitely covering so many creature types is for the best, because it's going to work well in a draft environment. But, yeah. Next up is Cleaver Blow. It has multi-cleave, and you can pay cleave an additional amount of times to knock off brackets. So it's destroy target non-black creature with mana value 3 or less. An opponent controls, you and its controller each draw a card and lose 2 life. Create a tapped 1/1 spirit with flying. I like this a lot. This is it's a mindful card, right? So what matters to me right now? Do I need that token to block? Then I'm going to pay the 1 so that it comes in untapped. Do I need to watch my life total? I'm not going to lose the 2 life, so I'm going to pay, right? Does the opponent have, too many cards in hand already? Maybe I don't let them draw a card. Is my target black? Guess I have to pay the cleave to make non-black, cut out of the card text. I think that's really cool card design. I think that's a very well-designed playtest card. Common black removal. So you choose 1, destroy target creature, then blank. So either create a food, create a treasure, put a menace counter on a creature you control, or that creature's controller mills cards equal to its power. I don't like this. I don't think that those, kind of removal spells are usually worth it. And the fact that it's, limited to target creature really kills it for me. Because if I'm paying 4 mana, I better be able to hit at least an artifact, or at least an enchantment, something else, right? It's just never worth it. Even if I'm creating a treasure, I just don't think it's good. And again, this could just be a legal card. There's nothing that wild about it. Creepy Crawler. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player who is afraid of you, that player discards a card and you draw a card. So an opponent is afraid of you if you are a horror, nightmare, enchantment, or face-down creature you control enter the battlefield or attack them this turn. Okay, so... Damn, who's afraid? Okay. So as long as you have a horror, nightmare, enchantment, or face-down creature enter or attack this turn, then they're afraid of you. If not, then the ability doesn't matter, and it's just a 4-mana, 2/4 Menace Reach. I didn't really notice that many nightmares or horrors in the set, or enchantment creatures, or things with morph. So, again, it's just one of those things where very dependent on what else you draft, and if you don't have those things, you're kind of fucked. Next up is... Oh my god, is this a reference to the fucking... Oh, what's his name? Okay, in case you guys don't know, I'm gonna play a short clip because I think I legally can. This video is iconic. ProZD, yeah.
Alright, my turn. I play a farmland card. I tap it for 1 mana so I can play Dairy Cow, because Dairy Cow is a grazing type, and I have greenest grass and...
That's literally, I think that's all I can show you, but this is just a reference to that. That video is like 5 years old, but it's fucking iconic to me, alright? That's so cool. This is good. This is good. Alright, I like this. I like references to the community. Next up is Defender of the Queue. So as this creature enters, lock your creatures in order from left to right. As long as you control a creature with positioning, each time a creature enters or comes under your control, position it to the left or right of another creature you control. And then creatures adjacent have +1/+1 and vigilance. Okay, I know this isn't what it's a reference to, but this really reminds me of Inscription to a extent. Like not in the art, not in the style, but the fact that everything's adjacent and giving like adjacent creatures like, you know, +1/+1, whatever. I don't know if that's a thing in like any other card game, but it just makes me think of Inscription. And I think it's cool. It changes up the game in a fun way without it also being game breaking. Next up is Don't Worry About It. So, enchant card in your hand. This aura remains on the battlefield. If you play enchanted card or it otherwise leaves your hand, put this aura into the graveyard. Enchanted card costs 1 less to cast, and when you cast enchanted card, copy it. So how do you signify this? Like, do you show your opponent the card you're enchanting? Or do you have to be like, okay, so I'm going to put this card that I'm enchanting in a differently colored sleeve to signify it's enchanted? Like, otherwise, or do you have to, like, write it down? Either way, it's a cost reducer by 1, and it copies the spell. So, I think it's on cost. You know, you have a big creature in your hand, you make it cost 1 less, you can cast it a turn early, and you get to copy it. I think that's pretty strong. I'm just not entirely sure about how you go about enchanting a card in your hand. Duelist Convention International. So when it enters, choose a 10-digit number at random and write it down. And whenever you play a land or cast a spell, if it shares a mana value with one of the uncrossed digits in the chosen number, cross out one of those digits and draw a card. Then if all 10 digits are crossed out, you win the game. So, here's how I see this, right? If you choose a 10-digit number at random, and you get 9, 8, and maybe even 7 anywhere in there, you're absolutely fucked. But otherwise, this is just card advantage over and over. I kind of like this. So, like, if your number is, like, 1, 9, 3, 2, 1, 6, 7, 5, 4. You cast a 1-drop, you draw a card. If you cast, a 3-drop, then you draw a card. So it can just keep drawing you cards as long as you're casting spells with different mana values. I think that's really cool. Definitely, again, like, this is something that couldn't work in normal Magic, but maybe it could, honestly. I really enjoy it. I think this is a good, card. Dwarven Confluencer. You destroy a non-token land, and its controller creates a mana confluence token. Okay. This is good. This is a good draft card. Because you either blow up your own lands, create mana confluences to color fix for yourself, or if your opponent is stuck with mana confluences, they have to be paying life just to add mana, so it's like a slow burn card. I think this is really well, really well designed. I like this. This is a good card. Essence of a Johnny. So, as the spell resolves, put it into the command zone, so it's an emblem, and whenever you cast a spell, you gain 1 life. I guess because it's in... How does this work? Can you cast it multiple times if it goes in the command zone? Like, can I cast it for 3, then cast it for 5? And then does it create a copy of itself because it's an emblem? Or how does this work? I don't get this one. This one's a no for me, dog. Fetching Garden. When it enters tapped if it was played from your hand. Again, this could just be legal. I don't see why this can't be legal. Flanking Lizard. It's a summon lizard. So it's a creature? So it loses its ability and becomes a creature that reads, enchanted creature gains flanking. Instead of So it's a 1/1 creature, right? Yeah, it's a 1/1 creature that can become an enchantment that gives a creature flanking. I think it's bad. And I know it's supposed to be like, oh, old cards were weird, but like, I just don't get it. Next up, Flavor Disaster. Reach, when it enters or when it's turned face up, target creature gets +X, where X is Flavor Disaster's power. Okay. Negamorph. You can cast this card face down as a 2/2 for 3, turn it face up at any time for its Negamorph cost, and put a -1/-1 counter on it? Okay. So it's anti-Megamorph. I get that, right? I get how it works. I'm just kind of baffled. Again, this could be very much legal. Yeah. I don't know how I feel about that. Fludge Gunk Guardian. So when it or another slug, ooze, fungus, or mutant enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent shuffles 3 gunk... I love gunk counters. Gunk counters were in the original playtest cards. They have no mana cost, no abilities. They have an ability. They have cycling 4, right? It literally just gunks up your opponent's deck, right? It kind of reminds me of like Parasite from Yu-Gi-Oh! In a sense. And I really enjoy that kind of like, it just negatively affects your opponents, right? This couldn't be legal in Commander, but I think this is really cool. You just gunk up your opponent's deck until they can't play the game while creating a board of slugs and oozes and fungus and mutants. Okay, the small problem is I don't think there's any of those creature types. There might be a fungus or a mutant somewhere, or an ooze, but there aren't too many of those creature types in this like draft environment. However, because it also counts herself, at worst she's a 5-mana 5/5 gunk up your opponent's deck. I think that's fine because she can still do something by herself. I think that's okay. Fireball. So, Cost Storm. When you cast the spell, copy it for each different mana value among other spells and lands you've played this turn. and it's a 4 mana create a 2/2. So, while technically you could create, I think this is interesting because it's for each different mana value among other spells and lands you played this turn. So a land is 0. And then we do have like rituals and shit in the common slot. So maybe you could kind of storm off casting rituals into Fireball. And yes, I get friars or monks, fireball. That is funny. It's good wordplay. I'm just trying to think logistically how good this can be. I think at best, it's probably going to be 4 mana, create 4 2/2s. That's not bad, but I feel like there are better things you can be doing, especially with the amount of setup that's required. Glade of the Pump Spells. So it's 2 and a green. You have to play 2 and a green to play this land as your land drop. It's green. When it enters, up to 1 target creature gets +2/+2 and gains trample until end of turn, and you can tap it to add green. So because you should be able to tap it the turn it comes out, you're basically only playing 1 green total. And then it's adding multiple mana each turn, which is good, and it'll pump up a creature the turn it enters. So, I mean, technically, if you have, like, turn 1, play a forest, turn 2, play a forest, play, a bear. Because there's forest bears in this set. There's other 2-drop creatures. And then you play Glade of the Pump Spells turn 3. Then you have more mana. So you're ramping. And then you're also going to give your bear or whatever else +2/+2 in trample. So I feel like that's not terrible. I think there is a problem with pump spells, where you play it once and then it doesn't do shit. But the fact that this is also a land, I think, is kind of passable. There is, too, the mention that this isn't an instant, so it kind of, it can't be a combat trick. That's the problem. That's where pump spells usually come into play. So being able to swing in with a 4/4 is good, but usually being able to swing in with a 2/2, and then if they block, being able to pump it out of nowhere is going to be better. Just the fact that it's predictable is its downfall. Glimpse the Unthinkable. Isn't that just a spell? I think that's just a spell already. Whatever. So it's a 4 mana, 4/5 Shroud. It can't be chosen. And the name Glimpse the Unthinkable can't be chosen. So, basically, it can't be targeted by anything, including your own shit. And it can't be chosen by, for anything. So, it can't be cloned. It can't be, your opponent can't, use a discard spell to make you discard it, I think. That's not bad. It's got a good body. I think there's a funny joke there, the fact that it's literally unthinkable, so it can't be chosen. I think that's kind of funny. I like it. Okay, that's fine design. Gobland. So Gobland isn't a spell. It's affected by Summoning Sickness, and has tap add red. And it can't block. It's a 2/1. So it's a land, so it's like a Dryad Arbor. So why not just make it a legal card if you're just going to make a different Dryad Arbor, right? Sure, it's a Goblin, which is better than Dryad, creature type wise, but I don't think it's really going to change anything. And if we're talking draft wise, being able to play a 2/1 on your first turn, even if it can't swing, pretty okay. Sure, you're not going to be able to play anything turn 1 because it has Summoning Sickness, but I think it's fine overall. It's not terribly designed. Having Season. If opponents would create 1 or more tokens, they create half that many instead. If they put 1 or more counters on a permanent or player, they put half as many. So, kills your opponent's token strategy, kills your opponent's counter strategy. This is a sideboard card if I've ever seen a sideboard card. But for 5 mana, there's just much better things you can be doing. Heart of a Duelist. You can draw cards from anywhere in your library. And when it enters, you draw a card. And yes, I saw this card before, and yes, I fucking love it. You guys may not know, but Magic Man, MTG Man, fun fact, did not grow up playing Magic, alright? I played I played Pokemon too. I played Yu-Gi-Oh till the age of like 10. Yu-Gi-Oh was literally like I think I started like age 3. All right, like Yu-Gi-Oh taught me to count. So I fucking love this. And the other cool thing too is if you have a way to be able to look at your library in any sense, theoretically, I just like I I love this card. If you had some way to look at your library, it would be so much better. But I love this card. It's so cool. I think two, and this is probably, the boring way to play it or whatever. But if we look in the rare slot, I think in enchantments, Future Sight is here. So you play with the top card of your library revealed. If you don't like what the top card of your library is, you just draw from somewhere else with Heart of a Duelist. Hish of the Snake Cult. So Nagas and Serpents are also snakes. That's fine. And then snakes have Daunt, Death Touch, and Poisonous. A creature with Daunt can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. Whenever a creature with Poisonous 2 deals combat damage to a player, that player gets 2 poison counters. Again, I think this... Oh, Will errated this to be true. That's funny. That's silly. But... It's again, this could just be besides Daunt, this could just be a legal card. There's nothing too wild about it. So, it's meh. Immersturm Battlefield. Hosted creature gets +2/+0 and have haste. And then host. Host target creature at this realm. A realm can host any number of creatures. Host only as a sorcery. So you play it as an enchantment, and then you can pay 1 in a red to just choose your creatures, and then those creatures will get, +2/+0 and have haste. Sure, you can't bump the same creature multiple times, but this is just a way to bump up your battlefield. I don't think it's bad, just kind of meh. Indicate. I saw this a while ago, too. Well, not even a while ago, a little bit ago. This could just be legal. It's a 0 mana target permanent, right? And I know what you're saying. Oh, just targeting a permanent, that sucks. Well, not really, because in this day and age, whatever, there's so many things that happen when you target a permanent, like heroic, or even just having a 0 mana spell, so that, your opponent, if your opponent has something out like, Jin-Gitaxias, the Jin-Gitaxias Progress Tyrant, where it counters your first spell, having a 0 mana spell like this would be really good. And again, I feel like this could just be legal. It's a little silly, but, I think it's fine. I think it's good. Intangible Vibes. All creatures are tokens. So after a creature leaves the battlefield, it ceases to exist. This stops graveyard play, which I think is pretty good. And then the other thing with this is, there's so many things that are destroy target non-token whatever. So maybe, I don't know, I feel like usually creature removal destroys creatures whether they're tokens or not. I don't know, it's more interesting than I don't exactly see how it would happen, what works. Next up is Jeskai Baller. It's 2 and a white for a 2/3. When you cast the spell, you create a 1/1, and then if you cast the spell from your hand, exile it as it resolves. At the beginning of your next upkeep, cast it without paying its mana cost. So, you cast it turn 3, it creates a 1/1, and then turn 4, it creates itself and another 1/1. It's definitely not bad. I'm not entirely sure. I get rebound basketball. That's okay. I'm just not entirely sure how I feel about it. Next up is Jundamount. It has Retrace, which I think you cast you What does retrace do again? Retrace. Retrace. You can play it from your graveyard by discarding a land. Okay, that's what I thought. I was right. I'm always right. You know me. I'm always right. So choose one at random and create a copy of the chosen card. You can cast it without paying its mana cost. Abrupt Decay is a kill spell. Blightning is a 6/1 trample haste. When it deals combat damage, that player discards 2 cards, and then I believe at your end step you sacrifice it. Bloodbraid Elf is a 2/2 with Cascade. It costs 4 mana, so you'll get to Cascade for 4. Lightning Bolt is just deals 3 damage to any target. Liliana the Veil is a planeswalker, and Tarmogoyf is Tarmogoyf. Duh. This is really cool. I enjoy the Jund game plan. It's very grindy. It's, I'm gonna kill your thing. I'm gonna deal damage. I'm gonna make you discard cards. I'm gonna sacrifice your shit. And then I'm gonna come in with the Tarmogoyf to, deal a shit ton of damage. I think this paying tribute to it is really cool. And then the other cool thing with Retrace is, if you wanted to build a deck around this, you really could. You play more lands and then just hope you get Jund out, so you can keep discarding lands to recast it, and then you'll get, more Blightnings, more Cascade triggers, more Lilianas, whatever. It's just a solid value card paying tribute to Jund, which Classic Jund is one of my favorite decks. I think the, just grindy game plan is really cool. Keeper of the Crown costs 2 and an L. L can be paid with 1 mana from a legendary source. Other legendary creatures have +1/+1 and indestructible. And then you can pay it for Crown or Coronation of the Wilds. Target legendary creature you control becomes a legendary, or target creature becomes a legendary noble. Has add 1 mana of any color, draw a card. So that's how you would cast Keeper of the Crown. It's okay. I'm not too big of a fan of it, honestly. So it's okay. So Knight of Lost Causes is a 2 mana 2/2 vigilance, and as long as you are way behind, it has +3/+3 and indestructible. If an opponent has 10 or more life than you, controlled at least 3 more creatures than you, or had at least 3 more cards in hand than you, you are counted as way behind. So it's at any point during this turn. So I guess technically, if your opponent has a board, you become way behind, and then you could wipe their board with some sort of kill spell, and then it'll still be a 5/5 indestructible creature. I think that's interesting game plan. It's kind of like the opposite of Serra Ascendant, where Serra Ascendant only becomes big once you have 30 life, so you have to be ahead in order for it to count. Knight of Lost Causes is kind of the reverse, where if you're really behind, it's a really big creature. And to note, it has vigilance, so you're not going to be tapping it to attack, and then you'll have a 5/5 blocker on the next turn with indestructible, so it just gives you good options. I think it's okay design. Kozilek Completed. No shot they called the man a CP. That's crazy. I wouldn't be going around here doing that. Oh, it's Phyrexian. Okay, that makes more sense. So it can either be paid with colorless or 2 life. Okay. That's way better. So when you cast it, each opponent gets 2 poison counters. Then each opponent with 2 or more cards with more than 2 cards in hands discards cards equal to the difference, and then an eye effect. So when it attacks, defending players sacrifices a permanent for each poison counter they have. Yeah, this card's nutty. The fact this is in a common slot, I imagine every draft pod is probably gonna have one. And then if we look to the mythics too, if somebody pulls that, and then they pull Show and Tell, just give up. You're so fucked. But either way, I think this is a really cool card. Like I myself, I've always wondered, Phyrexians and Eldrazi meet up, what would happen? We've seen the slivers in the Eldrazi, thought about that too. But I think this is just a really cool, big, beefy creature. Lazotep Archway, it enters tapped, adds white or green, and then you can exile it from your graveyard to create a 4/4. So, like, it's okay. It, again, like, this could just be a normal card. There's nothing too special about it. Lich's Duel Mastery. Is this a reference to Duel Masters? Question mark. So it enters, exile the top 5 cards of your library face down as shields. If you would lose life, instead put one of your shields into your hand. If you can't, sacrifice Lich's Duel Mastery. When it leaves the battlefield, you lose the game, and it has hexproof. So it lets you take 5 hits. But all you have to be, like, you just have to get hit by 5 creatures and you're dead. And I get it's at 6 mana, so this is like a more late game shield. But I just don't think this is very good. What I do think would be, like, more interesting is if it was like a ley line, but it would create like a copy on your opponent's side too. So you and your opponent are playing with the same rules here, and you both have to worry about, shit, I get hit 5 times, I die. Because really that is super limiting. And if you're making your opponent live under that, restriction too, I think that would just be a more interesting and dynamic card. Either way, Lifening Elemental. So it's a 6 mana, 4/6 lifelink. You splice it onto instant or sorcery. So you can pay 1 in a black to give an instant or sorcery lifelink, is basically what it does. I didn't really notice any super strong burn spells. Like, I didn't notice any, like, Price of Progress. Was there Lightning Bolt even? I don't even think I noticed Lightning Bolt. There's Tendrils of Agony, but that's loses life. That's not even burn. There's Unholy Heat, Chain Lightning, Dragon's Approach. I think that's it. There's not enough burn spells for this to actually be, like, super useful. So I don't think it's really, like... Some of these cards, I think, would be better in, like, your own personal cube than in, like, this draft environment, is what I would put it. Liliana's Other Contract. So it's 5 mana, enters, you draw 3, lose 3 life. If you lose the game, instead exile it and return it to the battlefield transformed under your control. And it's a... Okay, hold on, how does this work? So, it's Liliana's if you would... Okay, so you can't lose the game. And you get +1 to each opponent loses a life, and -4 to destroy target creature, and it's got 5 loyalty. So, I guess you become the Planeswalker, Liliana's undead minion. So you can't lose the game. But if you run out of loyalty, you still lose, I'm assuming. So, well, yeah, you would lose all loyalty, it would die, and then you'd automatically lose the game because you don't have it stopping you from losing the game. So I guess you just basically fight to survive afterwards. I mean, it draws you cards too. It's just really hard to see how useful this would actually be. Lutri Pauper Otter. So 3 blue-red, blue-red. Your starting deck contains no cards with a silver, gold, orange, or purple expansion symbol. And then when it enters, discard your hand and draw 3 cards. But it can be your companion. So you just have to play all commons, which I don't know if you could even technically, like, do that in a draft. Well, if you just take playtest cards, I guess that would be all commons. So this would be a really interesting build-around card in a draft, because if you just keep taking the playtest cards and you just keep taking commons, technically it could be your companion. But at that point, it's 3 to add it to your hand, and then it costs 5, and it's just a 3/4 where you discard your hand and draw 3 cards. I just don't think it's really good enough to take, but that could just be me. Next up is Luxior Invited, or Ignited. I think Luxior was Elspeth's sword that she got on New Capenna. So it's 4 mana, 1 loyalty planeswalker that equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each counter on it. You can +1 it to attach this equipment to up to 1 target creature, and you can -2 to give equipped creature +2/+2, and it gains double strike until end of turn. It's a planeswalker equipment. So you equip it to a creature with its +1, and that creature will have +2/+2. And then you can just keep using the +1 to make it bigger, but at the same time, it costs 4 mana, so I just don't know if it's really worth it. The other interesting thing is, like, I guess if you -2 it, it just dies, and sure, it gets double strike, but I'm not really sure how useful that's going to be. Next up is Madlands. It adds black or red, and it has Madness, and if you discard it, you can cast it for free, I guess. This could just be legal. That's what I keep saying to these lands. They could just be legal cards. I mean, it would be weird, but being able to play it from when you discard it, I think that would be fine. Maestro's Totally Safe Hideout. So as it enters, you can sacrifice a creature with power 2 or greater. If you do, create a token that's a copy of it. When it enters tapped, and it can add blue, black, or red. So lands that can create copies of themselves we don't usually see. I guess you would play this turn 3, sacrifice whatever 2-drop you probably played turn 2, and then you're at 4 mana. It ramps you by 1. I just don't think that's really enough for it to be super, super useful. But at the same time, it does add 3 colors of mana. So if that's what you're going for, I would play it. If you're playing a 3-color deck, I would play it. Magus of the Chains. I guess this is Mephisto's Chains or whatever. Chains of whatever. So if a player would draw a card, except the first one they draw on their draw steps, that player discards a card instead. If a player discards a card this way, they draw a card. If a player doesn't discard a card this way, they mill a card. Yeah, it's like it could just be illegal, honestly. I don't really like it. It doesn't really seem that good. It's just a bear, honestly, and then a overly complicated effect. But then again, I guess technically it makes them go hand neutral instead of drawing. But this also affects you, so I just don't think it's that great. And again, I think that just really depends. Like, if you're in black and you're not drawing that much, maybe it's fine. But the fact that it hurts you too kind of hurts. Map to Lortho's Temple. So whenever you complete one of the following objectives, check it off. If all 3 are checked off, sacrifice it. If you do, create a Lorthos the Tidemaker token. If I remember correctly, and then you just let me double check. I think he's just like an 8/8. Yeah, he's an 8/8. When it attacks, you can pay 8.